Hello. Hi.
How are you?
I'm alright. Yeah. I stopped to talk to you because I saw a movie. Did you see it? It was called Apostasy.
No.
It was in the cinema.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it was like a British produced
Yeah.
movie, and it was about the Jehovah's Witnesses.
Okay.
It's been like advertised a lot, so I'm surprised you've not seen it.
I think I've heard about it.
Have you heard about it?
Yeah, someone did mention it coming out. I didn't realise it had come out yet.
Oh,
That's all I know about it though, to be honest. I hadn't seen the adverts or anything.
yeah. I don't think it was shown in all cinemas though. I think it was one of those where like not every cinema, but like Manchester, Birmingham, you know, like the main cinemas and everything. There was a famous woman in it who's been in loads of things that can't remember her name now though. She's quite a famous woman. But anyway, when I watched it, it was all about this girl who was one of Jehovah's Witnesses, and her mum was and everything.
Yeah.
And she like met a boy in college, and she got pregnant, and of course that caused her to be in trouble, and she was like in a meeting with the Jehovah's Witnesses elders, and they like said that she was no longer able to be a Jehovah's Witness anymore. This is the movie, just telling you general plot. And her mum was told like don't help her, don't associate with her, because she was having this baby and she'd gone like living in a flat somewhere or something. And her mum and her sister both were still going to the witnesses. And the story is that like she like was with this boy who she'd met and she wanted to stay with him. And the mum was basically told like don't have contact with her, and so the mum didn't see her like all the time she was pregnant until the baby was born. And then one time the mum like went round to the house and to see the baby because she'd never even seen her own grandchild. And actually, if I'm honest, the entire movie was pretty sad. But as far as I gather, people have said, like loads of people have said, that it's completely accurate, that is what happens. That like, if somebody's done something and let's say they're not sorry, that their own family even can't talk to them. Like that mum, she actually says at one point to one of them, like, can I not even like, you know what I mean, can I not help her and stuff like that? And they're saying, well, you need to keep all contact to a minimum. And like for me, because I'm a Christian, I can't see that, because I only see Jesus like associating with sinners first of all, because he was bringing a message to them anyway. And he was like saying they need a physician. They're the people who need a physician, because they're the tax collectors and sinners. And then and the other thing that he says as well about the prodigal son is that like at one point the girl says, well actually, because she's not with the guy anymore towards the end, she says, well I'm really sorry, I want to come back in, but they don't let her back. They just say, well you've got to prove yourself for longer. And it's like the story of the prodigal son to me doesn't match that at all, because the story of the prodigal son, as the son starts coming down the lane, the father doesn't even know whether he's sorry or not. He just literally runs to him and says, wow, you're back, you know. And the son really in the story, he's only coming back really because he was stuck like in the pig thing, whatever. And he was like, oh, I better go back to my father. Do you know what I mean? So I don't believe that the Bible teaches that families should stop speaking to each other when someone sins. And then also, if someone's repentant 5 years later, let's say, theoretically, then let's say they committed, I don't know, they had sex with somebody outside of marriage. And then they married him. And then 5 years later, they're still not in the Jehovah's Witnesses because no one's let them come back, but they're not sinning anymore. They're married. and they're living okay,
Yeah.
but yet they're still cut off from people who are in the families and stuff. I don't think the Bible says that at all. At all. And I think that people are all talking about that, really, because of that film.
Yes, yeah.
But because of that, and probably because, you know, other people talk about it.
Yeah.
But it's just,
Yeah.
it's a really, really harsh thing that, while I'm a Christian and I understand that you can't just ignore wrongdoing.
Yes, yeah.
When in Matthew 18, Jesus talks about they treat them like they're a tax collector or a sinner. He says, if your brother doesn't listen when you go and say, oh, you know, you've done something wrong, and he doesn't listen and he keeps not listening, then at the end of it all, you treat him like a tax collector or a sinner. That's what he says at the end of Matthew 18.
Yeah.
So, Jesus ate with tax collectors and sinners, and they, as Jews, they all traded with people who were Gentiles and stuff. They didn't just go, right, well, you don't exist, I don't even speak to you.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah. Obviously, there's different circumstances or people's different, things that they go through. Like that particular story, I don't know it.
Yeah.
But
you may have heard of similar stories, though.
Yeah, but each one has its own background or stories and things. But you're probably looking at any club or anything that you join. There's normally a things that they do or they don't do. Then if they don't adhere to it, they no longer are part of the club, or if they don't want to be, that's fine.
Yeah.
When you talk about repentance and things like that, certainly if they make a change or want to come back, they make the steps to come back and make the change. That is absolutely, they should be allowed back if they've actually shown. They don't just say, oh, I'm fine, I'm doing what I want to do, and then they come back.
Well, this movie showed that she wasn't allowed back straight away.
Yeah.
She had to do some kind of coming to the hall all the time thing and other things. So where does that fit? Why are they not allowed back straight away? I mean, let's say they are really doing something bad, right?
Yeah.
Let's say they change. Why are they not let back straight away?
Yeah. Well, I suppose it's making sure that they have made a change, because anyone could say, oh yeah, I've made a change, and to some degree it's a protection for the congregation as well, to make sure that it's just given a little bit of time to make sure that what they're saying is correct.
How long is a little bit of time though? I mean,
is it
a month?
Yeah. Let's say the person said, oh, I'm not doing drugs anymore. Well, it's like, okay, so how long have you been clean for? A week. Okay, so we just, that's fine. You come to the hall, that's fine. We'll just make sure that you like, is that something that you're progressively working at and it's fine, and you're so if you're looking, it's just making sure that what they're saying, but that doesn't mean that they can't get any help.
See, that's what I wonder, because if you take your example of a drug addict, the person who's a drug addict is a drug addict not because they're loving it and they think it's a big laugh.
Oh no.
And oh yeah, brilliant, I love to take drugs, right? The person is messed up inside.
Yeah.
So if they come and say, right, I've stopped taking drugs.
Yeah.
Is it easier for them or harder for them to have to go somewhere where they know everyone and were previously loved?
Yeah.
And now everyone treats them like they're dead because basically they walk in and no one speaks to them.
Yeah.
And is that easier or harder? Like, as far as I know from the church I attend anyway, just as an example.
Yeah.
If somebody's a drug addict or an alcoholic or something like that, it's like people are there to support them, even to talk with them, even to help them. Not that we'd all socialise and go, hey, come round and have a drink at my house. You wouldn't do that, right?
Yeah.
But what you would do is have people who, when they turn up there, people are like, wow, I am so pleased to see you here. That's brilliant. And give them a hug.
Yeah.
right, to support them in their journey if they are giving up the drugs, and it's a hard thing.
Yeah.
And you know, well, I don't know if you know, but people know generally that if they give something up like that, it's like a daily battle for them.
Absolutely.
So they go to the hall and no one speaks to them, and they don't know when they're going to get welcomed back. The family isn't there for them.
Yeah.
Literally no one's there for them. They're expected to then get over their drug addiction all alone.
I think
All alone with no support, just everyone treating them like they're dead. How is that? It doesn't reflect, in my view, the love
that Christ
of
showed.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Because I agree with you to keep the congregation safe.
Yeah.
And every church that I know of anyway.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there are bad churches. I'm not saying there's not. There are.
Yeah. Yeah.
But every church that I know of supports that person, and people are not told, you know, you can't speak to them, not a word to that person. No one says that because we have like Christian freedom, Christian conscience. Like we all, you know, I don't know, can make a decision. And we're grown-ups, we can choose what level of contact we have with someone without somebody else telling us.
Well, you can look at two different scenarios. You've got someone that has never been associated or got to know what God's requirements are. So you've got like Jesus with the tax collectors and things like that. He was teaching complete sinners that in some ways didn't know right from wrong or didn't know the standards.
I understand what you mean.
So you've got from that level, then you've got ones that agree to make a change. Like we don't baptise children. You can't just go, oh, I'm a Jehovah's Witness. You get we believe like with baptism and things, you make an informed choice.
I thought you did I'm fairly sure I've seen children
not
at 10 years old, 11.
Not infants. Like if they made a choice and a decision, but we wouldn't baptise a child and go, well, they're as in a little baby, and go, well, they're a Jehovah's Witness. So they're making an informed choice as to they have to be old enough to have made a choice.
So let's say they're
by.
10 years old.
Yeah. So they've made a...
Because I have a 10-year-old.
Yeah.
Right.
And each 10-year-old's different. My brother at 10
I've met
would be
other
playing a football. And
I don't think 10 is an age where any person can understand the connotations of the decision that they're making.
Yeah.
My church doesn't baptise babies either.
Yeah.
Only. I think the youngest one recently that I've ever known to be baptised has been 13 or 14.
Yeah.
Okay. And when they get baptised, they're not getting baptised to agree to be part of a group. That's not what they're getting baptised for. They're getting baptised as a symbol of their faith in Jesus Christ and the symbolic death and rebirth of baptism.
Yeah.
And if they chose to visit another church or leave that church and go to a different church next month, it would have no bearing whatsoever on how I treated them or how anyone else treated them. So it's like entering into the Jehovah's Witnesses organisation, as far as I can tell, is that the baptism is like a contract where it's like, well, you agreed, and if you don't like it now, then it's hard luck, isn't it? Because you were 10 when you agreed, now you're 18 and you want to have sex outside of marriage, theoretically. Well, that's it. We are gone. Everyone you ever knew, your family, everyone, we're gone. You're on your own. Bye. See ya. That's not 10 years old is not an age, and some are maybe older, of course. I just feel as though why is it well, I'll tell you what, let's get back to the Bible. The Bible, where does the Bible say to that families, that mothers cannot speak to their children anymore, that apart from, and I know which verse you're thinking of probably, is where Jesus said, I will bring a sword and families will split up and all that. But at the end of the day, Jesus was saying that because of being a Christian, people would reject you just because you're a Christian. It wasn't referring to Christians rejecting other Christians. It was referring to, well, when you become a Christian, people may reject you because you've made that decision.
He does speak
people
about
in your own family.
Not eating with ones.
Yes.
That
yeah.
Just have to find it on my tab. Do you know which one I'm?
Corinthians.
Yeah, Corinthians.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're looking at ones that don't know a difference. and then make a change, and that baptism is about acceptance of Jesus' ransom sacrifice and repentance of sin. So you've got that element of going, actually, I am willing to live under what Jesus spoke about and the principles in the Bible. Then if they've made that commitment and have said, yes, I accept that and want to follow what you want to do, you've got ones that will do something wrong, but don't necessarily become what we would term as disfellowshipped, because they are actually generally sorry for what they've done. It's not like as soon as someone's done something, that's it, see you later, you're out, because that's not loving. But if they are genuinely, no, that's it, I don't actually want to live by those standards, and I am choosing to do that, have sex before marriage, keep living with my boyfriend, I don't want to get married, that's it. Well, it's like, well, you can choose to do that because we all have free will. But that doesn't mean, it's like with any family, that you can't just go, oh yeah, whatever, that's fine, just keep doing what you're doing, because it's not acceptable to God.
Does that mean treating them like they're dead?
It would mean a limit of association. It doesn't mean that the family cannot have any contact.
Well,
but the principle of bad association. Yeah.
I mean, you know, on that movie, there's like a kind of, social media. There's like people commenting on the movie who used to be Jehovah's Witnesses, and they're like, yes, my mum has not spoken to me for 20 years. I was disfellowshipped, like I wasn't, but they were disfellowshipped when they were like 18. Yeah. And now they're married, they're living a decent life, and their mum still doesn't know that her grandchildren and still doesn't speak to her. And it's like, there were so many people commenting to that effect that literally there was no contact. And
but are they wanting to go back to the congregation?
Well, what if they're not? What if they don't want to? So what? Does that mean that their mother should treat them like they're dead? That's just awful. Yeah. And their grandchildren don't know their grandmother and things like that.
Yeah.
That's not, it's just awful.
It's been instructed by verse 11.
Yeah. So, do you want to... Yeah. Sorry, can you see in the light? It's a bit...
doing my... So it's in 1 Corinthians, so it's Paul writing to the congregations.
Yes. Yeah.
So in my letter, I wrote you to stop keeping company with sexually immoral people, not mean entirely with the sexually immoral people of this world, or the greedy people, or extortioners, or idolaters. Otherwise, you would actually have to get out of the world. So that does mean that we do greet everyone and welcome everyone into the congregation. But now I'm writing you to stop keeping company with anyone called a brother, so someone who's come into the congregation and wants to live Jehovah's the God's way, who is sexually immoral, or a greedy person, or an idolater, or a reviler, or a drunkard, or an extortioner, not even eating with such a man. Yeah.
Well, I know about those verses. Let me just have a quick look, because I've got a Bible here. Is that 1 Corinthians?
Yeah, chapter 9.
And that's what, chapter 5?
That's from verse 9 we looked at, verse 9 to 11.
Yes. Okay. So the way that Christians view this one is, in my sort of knowledge anyway, is that eating with such a one was including the communion, including the bread and the wine, because they regularly called it breaking bread. Yeah. And that, in fact, for instance, the church I attend, if it was the case where it was known that somebody was behaving in such a way, I personally would not say to them, right, you come to my house and have a meal, okay? And I wouldn't say, let's go out and have a meal and socialise with them on that level. Yeah. But the church itself inside would say, well, you're not partaking of communion, you're not having bread and wine because you're not participating in the spiritual. You're now viewed as an outsider, you're viewed as a tax collector or a sinner, yeah? So that's the way that they would be they wouldn't be able to have a position of leadership or anything like that, yeah?
Because they're not setting a good example.
Yeah, so there are those standards, but as I said, it wouldn't extend to that person's family members. No one would say to that person's family members, right, you can't have hardly any contact with them. You need to, get away and just don't have any contact unless they're like dying in hospital or something. They would still have those family members who would continually try to help them and try to, say things.
Yeah.
Now, those family members may not choose to eat a meal with them, but it would still be regular contact, help where they needed it. Like in the example of the movie Apostasy, the mother would still be able to assist her daughter when she was having her baby, and she would be able to do all of that whilst trying to encourage her to stop the bad path. So even though it says that about not eating with such a one, that doesn't mean what it seems to mean within the Jehovah's Witness organisation. It's so very harsh, and it seems as though it doesn't only include those things mentioned in those verses, such as sexual immorality, greed, idolater, drunkard, or a swindler. It includes people who perhaps, I don't know, what other rules? You've got other rules like celebrating Christmas or their own birthday, or lots of other things that are not really acceptable in Jehovah's Witnesses. If they do that, that's not in the verses, but basically that's the same result. You get a disfellowship. Or even if they decide they want blood to save their life, and you face losing all your friends and all your family because you've made that decision, it's, in my view, that verse there isn't saying what Jehovah's Witnesses do. Jehovah's Witnesses take this to like 5 million miles that way, when Christians always remember, like Jesus said about the love, and pray for our enemies and help those who were like, falling away and stuff like that.
Certainly,
why would it be,
even from God's perspective, if they know His standards and they have willfully not wanted to follow them as a Christian, and you are following God's standards and they are willfully not wanting to follow them, would you want to have much contact with them?
Well, I'm saying to you that I wouldn't say, right, you be my best friend and come round my house, right? But what I would do is, when I saw them in the street, I would speak to them, hug them, talk to them, speak to them about the Bible, maybe about Jesus, about whatever. I would encourage them in every way that I could. If I saw them at church, I would hug them. I would say, it's great to see you. I'm so pleased you're here.
Yeah, if they're willing to follow those Bible principles, but in their choice of not wanting to,
well, even if they're not following Bible principles, because none of us do. Do you know that we all sin every single day?
Absolutely.
And we're all distinguishing between things.
Jesus died for us.
So every day, today, I've probably sinned like 10 times, 20 times already, in my thoughts, in not doing something I should have done.
It's that imperfection.
So when then we're saying that person, because from my experience of life, I'm 42. I've just been to the hospital. I've just had a scan. And my point is that surely you understand. You're both not like 15. You understand that people don't just say one day, do you know what, I'm going to go and take drugs. They don't do that. They think, they get to a point mentally and emotionally where they cannot cope. And they turn to something to help them cope. Right, so where's the compassion? Because no one, I know there are wicked people, and I'm not saying there's not,
people, they're not
but
inherently.
Where's the compassion? It's like, if my sister went off the rails tomorrow, she's married, she's fine. But she went off the rails tomorrow and started drinking every day, and she started going and sleeping with guys. I would not be going, well, hurt you, I'm not talking to you anymore. I would be going, what has happened? And tell me what has gone on in your life. What about the compassion?
And that process of disfellowshipping is not, that happens, see you later. there's a lot that happens before that
Yeah, but even
to
if,
help them.
But even if they are unable or unwilling even to change their course at that point, I mean, what if it is celebrating Christmas? What if it is that they've done something that's relatively minor in most people's eyes?
Well,
Why is it
as a
so
parent,
strict like that?
If you think of it, even with children, as a parent, if a child does something wrong, do you just completely let them get away with it?
Yeah, but you don't treat them like they're dead.
No, but if
I mean, seriously, get a grip. I mean, really, get a grip.
Like, just from
You know,
illustration,
it isn't in the Bible. The bit in 1 John that talks about not saying a word to someone, which I know about that one as well, is talking, if you look in context, about somebody who brings an antichrist message, who brings the wrong message and says, and it actually says antichrist against Christ, and that person you don't speak a word to. It is not in Scripture. This disfellowshipping arrangement is not in the Bible. Yes, congregational action, but this is too harsh and it's harming people. Do you know that there are people who attempt suicide and really feel very, very lost and forlorn by people just cutting them off like they're dead?
I think the hard thing is, like, with the films, sometimes on the internet and in the media, it's see very black and white of what happens. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't show.
It doesn't matter. It's whether it's in the Bible. Is it in the Scriptures or not? And you know what? It isn't. Matthew 18 says treat them like a tax collector, which means you can still talk to them, trade with them and treat them nicely and decently, like a human being. 1 Corinthians says drunkards and revilers don't eat a meal with them, which means you're socialising and bringing them in, even communion.
That's sexually immoral.
Sexually immoral.
Yeah.
That you don't have them as your best friend. I agree with that.
Yeah.
But that isn't the disfellowshipping arrangement. That is nothing like that. And that's why it's so upsetting for people.
I can see that you really feel strongly
I really do.
about it.
I mean, it's not my experience, but I know of people, and I saw the movie as well. And it's just, to me, I'll tell you what I think from the outside, is you're a group who were formed about 100 years ago, and basically it's a control situation. What it is saying, right, if you strongly disagree with us, openly and verbally, you're out, we'll treat you like you're dead. If you celebrate Christmas, you're out, we'll treat you like you're dead. If you do any of these other things that we think are wrong, you're out and we'll treat you like you're dead. And the reason for that is because then it's control within the organisation. It's keeping everybody set in there. And there are people, there's one person I know personally, and this is why I know a bit about it, is there's a friend of mine who is still a Jehovah's Witness. And she says, I don't even believe it. And I'm like, well, why are you going to the Jehovah's Witnesses? Well, because if I don't, my mum, my dad and everybody will shun me. I will be cut off from my family. I can't cope with that again. And the reason she says again is because she was disfellowshipped years ago. She managed to get back in, and now she's back in, she's terrified. I even said to her, do you know, why don't you just visit my church once? No, I can't, I'm afraid. If I get seen, I'll get disfellowshipped. I don't want to, I'm afraid. Now, all this tells me is that you're in a high control group where people are controlling what you're doing. You can't go into another church and be seen to go into the church because, people might see me and the elders will be on my back. Or you can't not knock on doors. You're not seen as spiritual anymore because you're not knocking on doors anymore. It's all control. Jesus said that he would set us free. We are free in Jesus Christ. He is the way, the truth and the life. The truth. Like, he's the truth. Not an organisation. Jesus Christ said, I am the way, the truth and the life. So if Jesus is the truth, that means that he said that his sheep follow him, those who know him follow him. That it's not an organisation.
But he also talked about associating with the same people. He did actually have,
which I do. I fellowship with other Christians all the time. So how is it different?
We say that we follow the Bible and the principles in there, which I can feel that to a degree we agree, and then in a lot of other things that we disagree.
Well, I just stick to the scriptures. I mean, to be frank and honest with you, I've even looked on your website at the disfellowshipping thing because she raised it. Do you know what I mean? And so I read the article and I looked up every single scripture, and I will tell you now, if you do the same and you look at those scriptures in context, you will see that they are not talking about what it says. The scriptures are not saying what the article says. They're just going, don't say a word to them, blah, blah, blah. It's just really a control mechanism. It's a way of keeping people within an organisation. And it's sad to be honest, because people, even if they do want to leave, just because they don't agree anymore, there's no way to leave, is there? Because you'll still get shunned. You'll still get shunned. You'll still lose your family, your friends, because they'll go, oh no, she's left Jehovah.
I suppose.
Well, Jehovah is not an organisation. Jehovah is God
to
himself.
Disagree.
Isn't he?
I'm sorry.
Is Jehovah God himself or an organisation?
He is himself.
So you've not left Jehovah if you've left an organisation. I worship Jehovah. I love God. I love Jehovah. I love Jesus. And I follow this as best I can and try and walk in Jesus' footsteps. And I don't need to be a member of an organisation who calls itself the truth, stealing the title from Jesus, and who calls itself, you know, God's only mouthpiece. Don't need it.
Fair enough.
But there are ways out. You know, there's many people who are not Jehovah's Witnesses anymore.
That's fine. Thank you so much for your time.
Check out jwfacts.com.
Right.
jwfacts.com, because there's plenty facts on there that will show it to you, and there's support for people who need to leave as well.
Yeah.
You know,
Thank you
truly.
for your time, and we appreciate it.
All right, you're welcome.